Okay, so in this video, we are going to do a charcoal texture, and this is our first one that we're going to do, and this one is smooth that we're going to cover in this video. All right, so here I am. I have my stuff set up, and so as you can see out in front of me, I do have my little still life set up of I have a coffee mug and then an ornament that we're going to draw, okay? So unfortunately, we won't be able to have this stuff set up so that you can actually draw from it. But I just took a picture of it and printed it out, and so there's basically the same thing. So that's what I'm going to be drawing from. All right, and so you're going to do both of these. You're going to do the ornament and the coffee cup in your sketchbook. And I'm going to actually turn my sketchbook sideways, so you're probably going to want to do that so that you have enough room to get these two objects on here. Okay, so I'm going to have my reference image up in front of me so that I can always look at it. And remember, you can sketch with your regular pencil if you want to, but I honestly prefer that you just sketch with your piece of willow, because then when you sketch with your pencil, it creates those lines in the paper, usually, and we don't really want that. Okay, so I'm going to sketch my ornament first. So that's just basically a circle. So the ornament's going to end up being kind of like a little review on shading the sphere, okay? And then also I'm going to look at where the shadow is coming out of my ornament. It's coming out all the way over here, and see how it's curving a little bit? And then look at where it's coming out up here, okay? So I need to look at those two things. And so I'm going to go ahead and put that in, and it's pretty level. See how it's just pretty level? And then it actually goes up about halfway. See how I can kind of look at that? It's about halfway up, just so happens. It doesn't always happen like that, but it did. And then I'm going to run out of paper, which is totally fine too. And see how I can just get rid of that, what I don't need. Okay, so there's the ornament. And I'm going to go ahead and just get the coffee mug drawn and out of the way. And then notice in my picture, my coffee mug, so here's my ornament. It's the closest thing to me. It's like on the lowest plane or the lowest level. See that? And see how my coffee mug is a little bit higher up. So I need to take notice of that. I need to take notice of this space that's right here, okay, when I'm drawing. So when I go to my actual sketchbook, I can do the same thing. I can draw a little line here. And then see how it goes up a little bit? So I can go ahead and draw that line there too. I can even look at where this line is like kind of going into my ornament. So I can kind of use this to my advantage. I can draw on this picture that I'm going to give all of you, okay? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to try and replicate that here. I'm going to go up a little bit because now I have that space. Okay. Don't start your ornament off too big, and then don't start it off too small. I think I might have started mine a little bit too big, but okay. And then there's a little bit of space between the two, so I'm going to think about that. And then also with my coffee cup, I like to go down the middle and make it, cut down the middle and find the symmetry. Okay, cut it in half. Obviously, this side's going to have that big handle on the right side, but this kind of helps me out. There's a round bottom. There's an ellipse at the top. Remember when we all had to measure that cup at our home? Okay, but right now we're just drawing it. So it's taller than my ornament. I'm also looking at the space here. Okay, so it's taller than my ornament, so I'm kind of looking at that. So I can even replicate that on my sketchbook, that little bit of space if I wanted to. All right, so now I'm going to be like, really, if we were to break down the mug, it's kind of like a big rectangle. So I could even start it off as a rectangle, kind of go down the middle, like so. And then I'm going to kind of curve the bottom of my mug. And I'm going to shape my mug out of this rectangle. You don't have to draw that rectangle. That's just something I do. And for you, if you want to, makes it a little bit, it kind of goes out a little bit up here at the top. And then I can always get rid of whatever I don't need. I'm looking at the shape of my mug. Okay, now I have my handle. And when you draw your handle, it's like 2 lines, okay? It's not just one line. It's like a line that goes on the top and a line that goes on the bottom. Where does the handle come out and where does it go back in? And see how I'm kind of fixing the top area, making it curve a little bit more. Okay, so there's my coffee mug. And then I don't want to forget about the shadows. Okay, don't worry about the shadow that's actually hitting this background area right now. We're just worried about the shadow on the table, okay? And then there's a little guy right here. So I look at where that shadow is coming out of my coffee cup. Kind of just going a little bit to an angle, and see how the shadow is like touching my ornament. So if I drew my coffee cup right in this right spot, then this is going to work out, okay? So you kind of have to, I got to fix my handle a little bit. I can even go ahead and shade it in real quick just to kind of, looking at where like, all right. And so then lastly but not leastly, I do need to create like a line back here so that my objects look like they are sitting on the table. I try to express this when you're working on this for your still life drawings, but some people aren't still doing it. So kind of create like a line back behind your objects that shows where you're, so that they're sitting on something. Okay, so now we have our objects drawn. So now we're going to start shading them in. So the ornament is just going to be a good refresh from what we've already done, shading in that sphere. Okay, I'm going to try and keep this here so that you guys can see what I'm doing. So my light source is coming from the top right of my objects. Okay, so I can go ahead and get rid of all this if I wanted to, if it's in the way. So what do I always use first? I always use the willow first. That's a very, very most important thing. It's like my rough draft, okay? So now I can see this like moon shape of this dark value that I'm gonna create. So again, I'm not gonna draw a line of that shape. I'm looking at that shape and I'm gonna sketch it in with my willow. And see how, again, my strokes are really close together. They're really short. And I'm layering it to get a lot on, okay? And I'm trying to, oh my goodness, that's a piece of willow. And I'm trying to shade with the shape of my circle, the contour of it, okay? Did I fill in the whole thing? No, because I don't need the whole thing dark. It's only dark over here, and then it's gonna gradually get lighter. And then I have this nice little highlight right here. All right, so now, like always, I'm gonna use my finger to soften that value. I'm gonna clean that up a little bit. I don't like what's happening right here. Okay. And so now that I've done that, I'm gonna make this side a little bit darker just because I want to tell myself that that's gonna be where it's really dark. Okay, perfect. So now I'm gonna start using my charcoal pencils. Remember, the 6B charcoal is the darkest value. It gets really soft. really dark, and then 2B is more of like the medium value. So I'm going to always go from dark to light, so I'm going to use my 6B first. And so again, I'm just going to be following that contour curve of my sphere. And I'm looking at where it's dark on my picture and trying to replicate that here on my drawing. See how I'm holding my pencil, changing directions. You'll be able to actually kind of move your sketchbook to get better angles. I can't really do that. And see how I'm just really like starting to soften and lighten my pressure, and I'm creating this like light medium value right now. Okay, over here I was like a little bit more heavier with my pressure, and see how I'm like just adding these layers and just like going over it, because I'm going to need to blend that in a minute. And so I don't want to put too much because now I need to soften it. And if you put enough down, then it's going to be nice and soft and blend. And so really, it's a little bit different than our practice one. I am going to kind of bring some of this extra charcoal over here to this side, because I'm going to do that because look at this. I have this nice little glare right here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to erase that away. And so with these masks on, you can't really blow the stuff away, so it's kind of tricky. So I'm going to erase that away. And then what I'm going to do now is I feel like I need to bring in some 2B, some like slightly medium value to kind of merge with my 6B and soften that a little bit. And maybe you didn't have enough 6B down, so maybe you do need to add more of that 2B to kind of create this medium value in the middle of your sphere. And I really want a lot of contrast. I really want this back left area to be nice and dark. And that contrast is going to happen by layering it. And I want it to gradually get softer. Because I don't see a line where these values change. It's like dark, medium, light. Okay, so I definitely don't want to see a line where these values change on this. They're just supposed to gradually, and that's hard. That's why we're doing this again. This isn't easy. What also is going to help clean this up is whenever you're ready, you put in your shadow, and see how I'm using like the whole side of my willow to kind of fill that in quicker. And I even want my shadow to be nice and crisp. And then I'm using my 6B pencil to make it darker. But again, don't feel like you need to spend too much time on this shadow, because we all know how to fill it in and make it nice and dark. That's easy because it's just kind of like a solid shape. So yes, make it a little bit darker, but don't feel like you have to get it super dark, because then you're just kind of wasting your 6B pencil. Like, what I'm more concerned about is what's happening on these objects. Okay, that's what I'm more concerned about. Obviously, I want your shadow to be drawn in the right area, but okay. And so what else is going to clean up this area over here later on is going to be the shadow from the coffee mug. Because remember, that'll like kind of create that contrast to kind of end this area. This is a line from earlier that we don't need. Okay, so now let's get into the coffee mug, because that's kind of a different shape than we're used to. And I know you may not be done with the sphere, That's okay. Just come back to it in a little bit. I know I'm going kind of fast, but then again, you can always rewatch this. And okay, so now my coffee mug, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use my willow first, and I'm going to look at where it's dark on my coffee mug. It's dark on the left side, but look at this shape that it's created. And then look at inside my coffee mug. It's dark here, and then it gets lighter gradually. Look at where it's dark on the handle. And then by adding this value on the handle is going to make it look three-dimensional, because right now it looks flat. It's just like a flat curved line shape. Okay, so now again with my willow, I'm looking at this shape that this shadow has created. And I'm kind of using my whole side of my willow to softly put it in. And I just kind of put some down. And then I'm looking inside. And also what we're going to talk about is how to get the rim of the coffee mug, meaning like this area right here. Because if we look at it closely, it's dark, light, and then it's medium. So we're going to have to like achieve these three different values so that it looks three-dimensional. Right now we're not there yet. So it's kind of dark here. And then what I'm going to do to help myself out even more is I'm going to create a background around my object. And I'm doing that because see how it's light right here on the edge of my object, but the only way to see that is going to be if my background is dark. Obviously it's not dark in my picture, but we're going to create that background so that now we are going to hopefully get rid of any outlines that we had. And then don't forget about inside here. There is that shadow, but then we're gonna, and don't make it too dark or too messy, because you do have to kind of pay attention to how you do this, because you don't want to lose your object. Still gotta like have it. And I could go ahead and shade in my shadow, but so see how just by adding that kind of, and we'll have to clean that up later. Okay, so now I have my little bit of willow down. Okay, so now, oh, and guess what I forgot? I forgot to darken with the willow, this area of my handle. This is a tricky area because it's really thin. I'll probably have to get bigger here eventually, but we'll leave it like that. I'm putting a little bit of willow underneath this. See how now I'm going to come in and I'm going to erase, and I'm erasing this like rim area of my coffee cup. And see how now I can see it, because once I added the willow here, I have to put stuff there in order to be able to take away. So now I can see this little bit of rim here because I can take it away now. Now I'm going to erase this, lighten that up. Okay, so now I'm going to use my 6B. It's darker on the left side. And so you got to be careful. It's a big object, so you got to still take your time and be careful not to like just make a lot of scratchy lines and to go super fast. You want to take your time, keep your strokes together, layer it, because you're going to have to soften it and blend it in a little bit. And see how the direction that I'm going, I'm kind of like when you shade it in the cone, kind of like curving with the shape of this mug. And then even when I use my finger to blend it, I'm kind of like trying to curve with the shape of the mug. Up here next to the rim, I'm not drawing a line, I'm just using my pencil to like add value. There's a fine area between drawing lines and shading. It's just a little subtly medium value right there underneath the rim. And so sometimes if you think you made something too dark, you'll be able to come back and lighten it with your eraser. Sometimes people don't make things dark enough, so then I have to come around and say, you need that value darker, more 6B. I'm going to add a little bit of 2B on this side of my coffee mug, just because I don't want it to be like super stark white. I'm just going to add a little bit. There is this lighter value here on the right side. And then I'm looking more at my dark value, and I'm always looking back and forth at where is it dark, and then how is it going on my drawing. Now I'm gonna see inside there, I need to darken that. I gotta be careful because here comes the fun part. I'm gonna erase this area right here so that there, again, because the rim needs to go all the way around. So, and because we added the background, I'm now able to erase it, and then you're able to see it. And then this darkness, see, sometimes I put my mask down. This darkness is fading over here to the left. So maybe now I'll switch to my 2B. And I never want outlines. It's a hard thing to achieve, no outlines. Come in with my eraser. And then there's like these little glares in there that you can draw in. So I have it dark, and so now I can erase it away. You can use your pencil top eraser, your kneaded eraser. Draw around places where you erase so that then you can see them a little bit better. Always remember to smooth things out with your hand. Okay, so now let's work on the handle. I'm not done with the main part of my cup, but I'm going to move on to the handle. So again, I've already darkened it a little bit with my willow. So now I'm going to come back in and darken, and maybe make it a little bit thicker so that it actually has some substance. So it's dark here. I like to use my pencil top eraser more than my kneaded eraser. That's just me. Some darkening. And it's really important that you already have like the background gray around it, because I wouldn't be able to see like these erased areas if I didn't have them in. And this is why it's tricky, because we're blending like with our fingers, and so we're in like this small area. And see, I'm kind of like pressing it. I'm kind of exaggerating. Some of my values. And like the background area, you know, is equally important as your object, because that needs to be clean and nice back there, because if it's not, then it's going to affect what's happening with your object. Kind of a medium value, and then there's like this little highlight on my there. I am adding a little bit of value to the background even to kind of shape, to help shape my coffee mug over there. So we always need to keep checking your object, keep checking things, comparing things to each other. Does this need to be darker? Does this need to be lighter? I need to fix this shape, so I'm going to erase and lighten. So now I'm kind of like drawing with my eraser. It's kind of this dark shadow down there, so I'm going to kind of and use my eraser to soften. And again, my shadow, I had already filled that in with Willow. I can come in and just darken it a little bit with my 6B. I do kind of want to make sure it's nice and clean up against this guy over here, but he's tragic. Make sure your rim is light where it needs to be light. You know, there's like a nice highlight. Seems just a little dark underneath there. So again, make sure your dark values are nice and dark. And then you have medium values, soft grays. And you have nice highlights, and it's clean and blended nicely and not scratchy. And this is smooth. So these objects are smooth. You're not doing texture yet. We will get to texture. You want to make sure you have all the different values from light to dark, blended nicely, drawn well, nice and clean, edges everywhere, highlights if you have any. A random highlight over here actually that I can throw in. It's kind of a reflection from the window when I took the picture. You don't have to put it in, but you can. I can come back and clean this one up if I wanted to. Yeah, that makes it kind of nice, that one over there on the left. Okay.